Welcome to Mastering Life's Adventures, an educational podcast about tapping into your true self, the soul, your soul, the substance of your life, to discover what life's ups and downs are really about, and how to have a greater sense of purpose, peace, joy, and fulfillment. I am Dr. Judith Holder, your host, coach psychologist, fellow seeker who enjoys diving into the connections between spirituality, psychology, wellness, and your everyday life's adventures. All preparing and polishing you like the facets of a magnificent diamond to be your best self. If you're craving more from your life, you are in the right place. Come, let's journey together and transforming what you know into who you really are. Mastering Life's Adventures begins now.
Hi, I'm back. And you know what? I'm back to talk with Karen, a deeper dive into questions as it relates to creativity, the arts, and spirituality. And what we're going to do is take a question and look at it and just have a conversation around that as it relates to our own evolution, our own growth, and not maybe thinking about two are related, or they may be related or not, but we thought it would be something interesting to you. So our first question for today is, how does judging, creativity, and brain science influence soul growth? Bet you haven't thought about that, but we're thinking about it. So join us to have this conversation. Karen, why don't you introduce yourself?
Hi, thank you so much for having me, Dr. Judith. I'm an artist, an art teacher, and the last few years have really done my own deep dive into the creative half of our brain that is so related to our artistic world, but just understanding that we all have a right brain, so we all have the ability to be creative, not just those of us that identify as artists, all of us. And then I started researching and finding all the benefits, but I had seen them happen already in my students and in my family itself. And finding this brain science to back what I was seeing and experiencing was exciting to me. And so I'd love to share some of those insights with your listeners.
That would be great because I think there is definitely a relationship between how we go about living our lives with our soul involved and how we can activate our soul even more through creativity and also through the general awareness about things. When you think about this deeper dive that we're going into between the judging and the creativity, what are your thoughts about that?
Well, I'm so glad we're starting with this because it's one of the foundational things that I've discovered and for my own life and then with my students about creativity versus judgment. When I was in art school, I went to school already being able to draw. I had good instruction and that stood me in good stead the first year. But then when I started my major, which was painting, I had no experience really painting. Quite honestly, my professors didn't like my work at all. I love portraiture, portraits of woods and nature. And they were from the abstract expressionist school, which has its roots in the modernism of the 20th century. But I wanted to paint what I saw. And quite frankly, they used four-letter words to describe my paintings. After 2 more years, they convinced me that I couldn't paint, that I was a three-dimensional artist. So I went into studying sculpture and ceramics, which I still love and still do and teach. But I wanted to paint. I really wanted to paint. And I had come into agreement with their criticisms. I had found that whenever I tried to paint, I couldn't finish it. As I reached a point past my skill level, it's like those words, those left brain criticism words from those professors. Well, they know best. They're trying to save the world from a bad painter. You can't paint. See, you're just proving them right. And that mindset just was kept me from being able to finish a painting for a decade. I had stack after stack of paintings that I couldn't finish. And I had these wonderful, beautiful little baby boys I wanted to paint. And I try, but I had convinced myself I couldn't finish a painting. Till I got a mentor, somebody who taught me and helped me get past my own limiting beliefs. Not only my own limiting beliefs, but also developing the skills I needed to accomplish the type of art that I wanted to do. That taught me an invaluable lesson. He didn't just make me a better painter, he made me a better teacher, because I started understanding the power of positivity and encouragement for the right brain. At that time, I didn't understand anything about brain science. I just knew that emotionally, I could not produce anything creative that I wanted to. We have this left brain critical side that we need for critical thinking and for organization and order and timeliness. It's a wonderful side of our brain, but most of us have never really spent the kind of time developing the other half of our brain. I know I'm being simplistic. Those of you that understand brain chemistry know that it's more complicated. The true goal isn't one or the other, but both, to have them operating together, building beautiful neural connections that make us more brilliant, that releases serotonin, the happiness chemical, that make us emotionally feel better. So anything in our mindset lifestyle that hinders us from operating in our creativity needs to be overcome.
As we're having this conversation, I'm thinking about it through the lens of the soul and what happens for the soul when there is this disconnection. So just as you may have the disconnection between the left and the right brain, there's a disconnection between the soul and the spirit, or the Christ, or the I am presence of the creator. What we find is that when we have these critical statements that are being given to us early in childhood to adulthood, creates these kind of divisions, either great gulfs or small. We don't feel very connected inside. What the soul wants is connection. It wants to feel connected to something greater than itself. I just don't understand why I don't feel better, or why I can't do it the way I envision. So because there's a disconnection, part of that creativity you're talking about, Karen, is also the creativity of the soul that is needed.
Absolutely. Our right brain connects us to our imagination, those things you can't really see, our intuition, our ability to create and invent. That part of our brain is, for most of us, underdeveloped. Be honest with you, it's not certainly encouraged in our education system. And a lot of the people that I talk to and work with, they had those wounds you're describing very young, much younger than I did. But as much as that affected me, people in kindergarten who have their colored paper ripped in half because they colored outside the lines by a kindergarten teacher is really scarred deeply. Mm-hmm. And their soul doesn't have that opportunity for expression like they could have if they hadn't been treated negatively or cruelly. So whether it's a peer, a teacher, a parent, or a loved one, somebody influences you and told you, you can't sing, you can't dance, you can't play the guitar, you can't draw, you can't paint, you can't do anything of these creative worlds, it affects you emotionally and mentally. As you're describing this disconnect, I knew I wanted to paint. I wasn't great. And I'm not saying I'm the world's greatest painter, but I have found joy in painting like I never could have with that negative mindset over me. I have expression. I've gotten to do portraits of both my mom, who's 93, and my little brand new newborn premature grandbaby. So there's this world of life that is for each of us. We all have this right brain. So we're all meant to be creative. We are all creatives. The adventure is finding our area and desire in creativity. What moves us? What do we have a desire for that you could connect with and be smarter, more fulfilled, leaving a legacy, having a truly wonderful, adventure-filled life, which is...
When people say, that would be great, but it doesn't work for me. I tend to be more logical and rational. So I'm not sure what you mean by have a greater sense of fulfillment, because I'm okay right now. I'm not bad at how I am. I always like to improve, but what about us who don't? have that connection.
I admit I am more right brain than left brain, but Albert Einstein, who is undoubtedly one of the greatest creative geniuses of the 20th century, said that imagination is intelligence having fun. So creativity is having fun being intelligent. And it's no problem being logical and orderly. I know that you are more fulfilled as your complete person and in touch with all parts of you when you engage your creative side. You don't have to do it as an artist. There's so many ways to be creative that it's exciting just to see the list. I'd love to share more with your listeners of other ways to be creative if they feel like, well, I'm very left brain. I'm very strongly left brain. Well, that's awesome. Praise God. But I promise, as you engage in these more right brain activities, it's going to connect with your brilliant left brain to make you even more logical, to have solutions you never would have thought of without engaging the other side of your brain.
What the soul wants is to have the integration of the right and the left brain. The soul wants us to have a holistic view and the agility to use either or both at the same time. What the soul works by is the Holy Spirit. And part of that Holy Spirit is love. So the more that we love ourselves and we love the thing that we're working on, be it from the art all the way to a work project, the more that the soul can show its greater expression and give us these inspirations, little kernels of wisdom about maybe how we can do it a little bit different that makes it more innovative, more creative, more expression of oneself.
The keys for people are, what did you love when you were 5 and 6? Because some of the research I've been doing, I've kind of switched my focus these last few years, art as self-therapy, wellness through creativity, because of the examples that I've experienced and seen with my students and learning about brain science and understanding the soul and the spiritual part of us. These stories are so engaging, and it was great finding out maybe more about the whys of it. How did it happen? One of the researchers said 98% of 5 and 6-year-olds are creative geniuses. That's 98% of us, but only 2% of adults. So the question is, yes, you've developed this wonderful logic, order, beautiful, brilliant left brain, but you have half your brain that is waiting for you to engage, because that's the part of our brain that listens to your soul, that listens to the Spirit of God, that hears the bigger picture that Dr. Judith is talking about, sees the big picture. The left brain is very specific, it's orderly, it takes steps, it's timely. You can get out of your world and into your inner world through right brain activities. And that really brings healing. Deep healing.
And I think that's the piece that people are maybe seeing as more invisible, is that through that holistic engagement and learning how to be able to do that, which we can talk about in a minute, it allows you to be able to step up and having greater expression and greater wisdom and greater attunement, because there was that statement, and let that mind be in me that was in Christ Jesus. Well, that mind is the creative mind. It's not the lower mind of the logic systems. That's only that service to the higher mind. So Jesus did something to get, that Christ mind within him. And so there are other things that we can be able to do to tap into that as well.
And it really does minister to me to know that just engaging your left brain releases serotonin, a happiness chemical. So when you're feeling low and discouraged, feeling lonely, feeling disconnected with yourself and others, there are very practical ways that you can start on purpose engaging left brain, right brain connected activities to elevate your mood, to make you feel better, to encourage you to have this working of your whole brain, connecting to your soul and the Spirit of God, and you will just feel as good as you can compared to where you were without it.
That's nice. So let's talk a little bit about what are those things that people can do. I know you can't go on to all the wealth of things, but maybe just share a few things listeners can do to help them move forward with understanding this notion. How does judging, creativity, and brain science influence soul growth? Part of that is understanding the how-tos. How do we make these connections, this whole brain connection that's going to be holistic and allow the person to continue to grow as well as the soul to continue to grow?
That's such a good question. And a lot of people say, I don't have time to get great at it. What I'm finding, it doesn't matter if it's good or bad. You just do it and it works. But we want to be good at what we're doing. And so a lot of us that love to sing, but we're not gifted at it, have learned to either sing in the shower or sing in the car when we're alone. And having a brand new grandbaby, I'm having so much fun singing to him because he can't tell me to stop. He just enjoys it. So it's something that's in very, very many of us. We love to sing, but we wouldn't sing in front of a microphone. Scientists actually studied people singing in the shower. What happens to your brain when you sing in the shower? It's so much fun to really think about because a lot of people do just enjoy singing whatever in the shower. They're not even thinking about solving problems at work or relational or anything. They're just doing their thing, singing along. They get out, dry off, they're feeling warm and fuzzy, and an idea comes to their brain, have no understanding that they have been engaging left brain, right brain, making new neural connections just while they're in the shower. Or for me, it's driving somewhere all by myself, singing at the top of my lungs. Nobody's around. I love worship music, so I'm just praising my creator, having a good time. I get to where I'm going and I feel good. I'm not affected by the traffic or whatever else is going on. I'm just enjoying it. And I'm releasing serotonin, the happiness chemical, and everything feels unified. It's what Dr. Judith is saying, there's this connectedness that we're experiencing while we do something as simple as sing in the shower or sing in the car. So that is one easy example. Another one is taking a walk. I'm not talking about a Fitbit, count your steps, aerobic walk, which is, of course, already very well known, good for you. I'm talking about a stroll, maybe with your loved one or a pet or by yourself. Maybe you take your sketchbook or a notebook to jot down some things, maybe not. Just enjoy looking around, being in the moment. And you mentioned that earlier, taking time in that moment to just experience the outdoors, the sky, the neighbors, the children, the birds singing, the crunchy leaves or the beautiful flowers starting to bloom. It's takes you out of your worry and anxiety and stresses of life. You release that stress as you just stroll and connect with nature, with God, with your loved one. And it is good for your soul and your mind. And it connects left brain, right brain. Easy.
Yeah. Those are nice ways and easy things that one can do. And while you were talking about that, an idea came to my mind that is when you're walking, feel yourself walking, not just in your mind, but be fully present, because that's when the soul will speak to us. When the silence and being quiet and enjoying the sunset or the sunrise, breathing is another avenue to allow the soul to whisper to us, but we ask our soul the question, so what do I need to do today that would make a difference, that would add value to someone else's life, or that would allow me to be creative in some ways? Be quiet and breathe, walk, sing, or praise the Lord. Various ways for that joy to come forth, because that's what the soul likes. Mm-hmm. And the soul says, oh, okay, this is an opportunity for me to whisper something or give you some inspiration that will allow you to think of things in a different way, a more helpful way.
Ideas come to me all the time. I do this every day because of an injury. Bicycle riding is better for me than walking. I'm getting clarity and direction and solutions. It makes life so much easier when you're releasing the stress. You're not dwelling on the negative. You're not trying to solve a problem. You get these brand new connections, and it is so much more adventurous. There's no limit to it. Oh, my skills can only take me so far. But through him, there's no limit.
Possibilities upon possibilities, which is wonderful. And it came to mind that, sometimes, when we engage in hobbies that allow us to feel a sense of joy, we're being fully present with that particular hobby. that a person is engaged in, which gives them that burst of energy or the feeling of saying, I can relax, because of the hustle, bustle of the living of life just makes us always on the treadmill, it feels like, of doing things. When we're on that treadmill, we can't always be truly connected to our inner self, our soul self, unless we're intentional about it, knowing that the hustle and bustle around us, but I'm still staying centered and anchored in something greater than myself, which is my soul and the soul essence of Christ, God, the Creator. Another thought that came as you were saying that is the creative arts, just drawing or doing something that you don't think you can do, but do it for fun.
Yeah, we have one of our sons was just as gifted as his brother in athletics. He could run faster than anybody, even without the right shoes. He had these natural gifts, but competitive sports turned him completely off. He didn't want to do sports for competition. He wanted to do sports for fun. And it was very hard to find coaches who wanted just to have fun and not just win. He's always been that way. He's a very friendly guy. He doesn't want to be better than everyone. He wants to be with people. That is not celebrated in our very competitive culture. It was very difficult for him to have outlets that allowed him to be himself. Usually it was neighborhood basketball hoops and just be able to play with his friends and not feel like he had to be in a sport where the only goal was winning. I didn't really understand him at first. My other boys were so competitive that when he came along, he was different. He had more of his dad's Winnie the Pooh kind of life. He just was very talented. And the same thing with music. He's the kind of savant in music. He can just play an instrument, listen and hear it and play it. And his brothers who are musicians or professional musicians are just always been jealous of him. But again, when I tried to get him to take music, he's like, no, I'm doing this for fun and not for performance. So you have to know yourself. What is it you want to do? If art is just about being the best artist in the world or wowing people, it's not going to give you the kind of fulfillment that we're talking about here. We're talking about engaging in creative activities for the pleasure, for the joy, for the satisfaction, for what it does to you mentally and emotionally, enriching you and your life. My father was a Marine. He knew I was teaching art, and when he retired, he had me teach him painting and drawing. At first, he wasn't any good at all. He was very structured because he was very much more left-brained. He had written some textbooks in the military, but engaging in the creative side of his brain was brand new for him, except for cooking. He did some gourmet cooking through the years. He took to this painting and he got better and better at it, but he loved it from day one. And he was never going to hear one word from me because the joy he was getting from the activity was way more important than how good or bad the art was. As a teacher, creating a safe place for you to have the adventure of learning something new without that engaging that critical side, because the truth is our left brain shuts down. That critical part shuts down our ability to be creative. Our right brain is very sensitive and connects with our innermost being. It's very in tune to the five senses. And when that left brain is critical and it's shouting, it shuts down and even wounds the right side of our brain. Maybe some of your listeners have these wounds and you recognize that, wow, I got put down so bad for the way I sang, it shut me up. But maybe I could start singing in the shower, in the car again. Or I got criticized for coloring outside the lines. Maybe now I could take a class and explore that creative part of me, because it's never too late. You're never too old. It didn't pass you by. It's still available. It's still there. Whatever you loved when you were 5 and 6 is still inside of you, longing to be expressed.
One of the things that happens because of imprinting by adults or people in authority of us, which they may have, we start having, which is a fixed mindset. That I can't is a fixed mindset. When we move into that fixed mindset, we stay there. but we don't realize it strangles the soul. The soul doesn't want a fixed mindset. It wants it to be open. It wants it to be saying, okay, I didn't do it well that time. Doesn't mean I'm not going to do it well next time.
Yeah.
It's like a concert pianist. They didn't become a concert pianist just by doing it one fell swell and they got there. No, they had to practice, practice, practice. And that's what the soul wants us to continue to practice, continue to evolve, continue to practice, continue to evolve, continue to practice. And you know what? You find a new way of doing something. And you realize, oh, I can take this fork now. This will get me to another level of awareness about myself that I wouldn't have had otherwise.
It's so true. What we're talking about is engaging both sides of our brain. You pick up a utensil and you're using your left brain. It's not isolated. We're creating more and more connections. Do we have time for one more story? I think I talked about David last time. He was a young man who had dyslexia and ADHD. So he was not thriving academically at all. As a matter of fact, he was so discouraged and depressed when he came to me. He didn't believe in himself. He took to the arts. His mama brought him to my studio and he started engaging in the arts. And his success there, I started entering my students' work in the fair and they started winning youth art competitions. That kind of success changed his life. Now, this is a young man, barely into his teens. But he loved sculpture very much. He was doing so well that it gave him the impetus he needed to do the work to overcome his other challenges. I have had a lot of autistic students. I have an autistic student that I'm working with right now that is really talented in drawing, but her challenges mentally have made academics very difficult for her. I teach drawing, I teach painting, but she's doing knitting. Well, this week by week, she's showing me this length of cloth that she's knitting, and it is 20 feet long. Now, for her, it's only this wide, but it's 20 feet long, and it is so exciting to her that it is changing her life, that she can make something and have it visually appear before her. I'm not a scientist. Seeing her joy and find this release and relief mentally as she is engaging left brain, right brain, creating new neural pathways. Now, when David, the young man I was talking about, graduated, he was able to graduate from high school, which was a huge success. He got not just first place in the fair, but best in show. This kid was riding high when, unfortunately, he had a brain infection and caused a stroke that paralyzed him on the right side. That was devastating to his family. He survived. They had to take his skull off. He actually has a plastic skull because of all the infection. He lived, he survived, but he left that hospital after 4 months of rehab, dragging his right side of his body, not being able to use his right hand and not being able to talk. His mom brought him back to the studio. I said, well, your left hand works. That's what I use, my left hand. Started teaching him drawing and painting left-handed. And he got it so quickly. His neurosurgeon called me. I think I might have told this story before, but he said, whatever you're doing is working. It's bringing healing to the right side of his body. So we talk about this plasticity of the brain, these neural connections that he had already been building as an art student were now working for him to overcome the damage to his prefrontal lobe and other parts. And he was able to start talking, start walking. He's still stronger with his left hand than his right hand, but he can use his right hand. It's not curled up in a ball. You would look at him and not know his head, his skull is plastic. He's having a life worth living because he engaged left brain, right brain, and it's still working for him today. So I'm convinced, I'm thoroughly convinced the power of art to heal. And I know it can bring so much joy and uplifting in the soul and spirit to your listeners.
The stories you share with us really help to galvanize inspiration to say, maybe I need to look at this in a different way and not be fixed to the point of saying, well, I can't, but maybe into more of a notion that I can. If I need help, I can get help to do it. Or if I need to go on YouTube and look how to do it, or if I need a coach like Karen to help me manage the little steps of moving forward, that's helpful. But ultimately what you're saying is, when we are willing to experiment, it increases our neural pathways and neuroplasticity. We just have to keep at it because it allows that neuroplasticity to form and get more deeper and deeper, and you developing through practice whatever you want to get better at. So don't think that you have to look at things from the right or the left part of your brain, but look at it from the holistic brain, from the integrated parts. And that's what the soul wants us to do, is see the integration, that we'll have experiences that are quote unquote left brain. Yes, we need to gain mastery around that. We'll have some experiences that are right brain. We need to gain mastery around that. But ultimately, the soul is the wholeness of who you are, and being understand that you're tied to something greater than yourself. And that greaterness, you become aware of the fact of my limitations of last year are my adventures of today.
I love that. That's wonderful. And, it's not hard. That's what I love to do. I started just a couple months ago an online group membership art class, and I teach and train, and we encourage, and it's a no criticism zone. We create a safe, no criticism zone. I've got a variety of ages of people in it. It's just a small subscription price. We have 3 live classes each month. People are really super engaging in it, and I'd love to have anybody interested to get a hold of me and join. First class is free, so anybody can join and see if it's something for them. Obviously, I'm a visual artist, so that's my area of expertise, but there's so many ways to be creative, and we'll talk about that more.
I welcome you, seekers and listeners, and listen to part 1 and 2 that Karen did in January 2025. And that was looking at creativity and inspiring the soul expression. And also part 2 was looking at child shame to adult game. And those things may be of interest to you to listen to and hear some of the similarities and some of the differences in what we're talking about today, and diving a little bit deeper into looking at this notion of how judging and creativity and brain science influence soul growth. As a final comment, is there any phrase or statement or word that you would like to leave with the listeners, and also how they can reach out to you if they should want to do so?
Yeah, in your heart, when you hear something like this and it has a spark of life to it, there's a little increase in your pulse, maybe. I remember when I was 5 and 6 and I loved doing the piano, or I loved jumping, or I loved storytelling. I loved drawing. I loved coloring. You can touch back to that because it's still in you. And so I would say, as an encouragement, think about what you loved when you were 5 and 6, and how you can perhaps start engaging in that as a new adventure now in your life, whatever age you are, whatever place you are in your life. You can reach me through my email, KarenDeLoachArt@gmail.com. Pretty simple. Just say interested, and I'll give you the Zoom link to join us for a lesson to see if it's something you would enjoy and find beneficial. So I encourage you to do that. We're still very small, so there's plenty of room. You wouldn't get lost in the shuffle. It's a small group so far.
I think sometimes the opportunity of working in a group allows us to see all levels of creativity that you may be able to tap into, and that you say, oh, I never thought about doing it that, or doing it that way. Let me try and see. That's what the soul wants, is the curiosity. For us to continue to be curious and willing to engage and see things from different perspectives. Being involved in Karen's group is one step of helping you in that manner, and something semi-structured that allows you to know that you're going to be meeting on a particular basis that allows you to continue to strive and continue to grow. Thank you, Karen, for your thoughts and your wonderful experiences that you have shared. And listeners, be well. See you next time. Bye for now. Take care.
Thank you for joining me for this episode on Mastering Life's Adventures, being your best self through soul evolution. If you have enjoyed what you've heard today, I would be delighted if you would share this episode with others, leave a thumbs up, and subscribe to my Mastering Life's Adventures podcast. Look forward to your joining the next episode. Please leave any comments or suggestions you might have below. Bye for now.